let's talk about what happened on Saturday. And let's talk about the winners and the losers, because ultimately, in the end, Jake Paul won. He rebounded, looked pretty good in doing so, went 10 rounds. And I know you're very happy about that. You predicted the win, Frank. And you know, it's so crazy because you have to pick your words wisely, because everyone gets very offended when you throw any praise towards Jake Paul. But I will throw praise towards him on two fronts. Number one, he went 10 rounds. He went 10 rounds in his 8th pro fight, I believe it was. Let me just get that right here. I think he's now 7-1. To go 10 rounds in your 8th pro fight, yes, 7-1. To go 10 rounds is supremely impressive. Even if you have no respect for his opponents, the battle against the rounds and the battle against how tired you get after 3-4 rounds, there's a reason why when you're coming up, you're fighting 4-round fights, 6-round fights, 8-round fights, 10-round fights, title fights are 12 rounds. It's because it's incredibly tiring to go 4, 6, 8, 10. So that in itself was impressive. The other thing was there was a moment right before the main event started, and the walkouts were fun. He walked out with, I believe it's Little Dirk. Is that correct, GC? Little Dirk?
Yeah, that's correct.
Why would he wear a mask on his face? Like, isn't it hard to tell? Like, could have been a doppelganger, no? Or is that his thing?
I think it's just the style.
It was like a ski mask that he was wearing.
Yeah, I know. I saw it.
Okay, anyway, there was a moment there he walks out with him. Hi, guys, how are you? And there's a moment where he walks out with him, and then Nate walks out with E40, which was tremendous Bay Area legends, the two of them. And, you know, at first you're thinking like, wow, this is fun. It's different. Saweetie with Amanda Serrano. She's dressed in the Cowboys cheerleader gear. And it's like, this is fun. This is fighting. The pageantry is fun.
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
What happened, guys? You didn't see what?
I don't. Did E40 walk out with Nate?
Yeah, of course. What are you, crazy?
Did?
Yes.
Yeah. I left my mic on during that. That's why you heard us.
Okay. But yes, E40 did walk out with Nate. That was cool. And so the whole thing was just like it felt big, it felt different, it felt, it felt special. But then there's a moment as they're walking out and the fight is about to start, and Nate's in his gear, and you see him wearing the trunks and the shoes and the gloves, of course. And the place the place was on fire. The place was absolutely on fire. Shout out to the crowd. I was at Spence Crawford the weekend before, and no joke, like one fight, like going into the Isaac Cruz fight, there's no one there. You walk in at the prelims, there's legit 100 people at T-Mobile Arena, and it was the same for Tank Garcia and any other big boxing event that I've been to. Here, for the early prelims, the place was probably 60% full. By the time the main card started, it was probably 80% full. By the time we were at like H2O Silv's fight, it was 100% full. And so that to me says that A, this was probably an MMA crowd, because boxing crowds just don't act this way. Unless they're in Europe, it's a little bit better, but in America, no. And B, this was a special big event. You saw all the MMA legends on the left side from where I was sitting, from Rampage Jackson to Gilbert Melendez to BJ Penn. Czech Congo was there. Joe Schilling was there. Bobby Lashley was there. Francis Ngannou was there. Kevin Holland was there. I mean, it was so cool to see that whole section just there to support Nate Diaz. And there were some other people who had been on the journey with him, the likes of Mike Kogan, who used to represent him, now works for Bellator. Rich Chow, who's been a longtime friend of his and also used to work for Bellator and Strikeforce and Rumble on the Rock back in the day. And just like a lot of familiar faces who, quite frankly, I had not seen in a while, but it was just cool to see the MMA community there to show up and support him. But you sit back and you look at this scene, and it was like I said, it was very hot. The crowd was tremendous, intense, all that stuff. And you're like, this is an insane scene. They're not fighting for a promotion right now. They're not fighting for the UFC. They're not even fighting for Bellator. They're not fighting for PFL. They're not fighting for Matchroom. They're not fighting for Top Rank. This is something that was just built. This is something that was just created less than 3 years ago by Jake Paul. Most valuable promotions, all that stuff. Like, you come out, you're CM Punk fighting in the UFC. You have the benefit of the machine. You have the benefit of Stipe and Overeem and everyone else. You're anyone crossing over, James Toney crossing over, anyone going into a big promotion, you have the benefit of the machine. He created the machine. This whole post-UFC run for Diaz, and the money that he made and the opportunity and the just fun 3-month journey that we were just on doesn't happen if there isn't a Jake Paul waiting on the other side, giving him that opportunity to fight him in a fight that makes sense and was somewhat, evenly matched going into it. And so I find it weird to not at least give him that credit, whether or not you like this or not, whether or not you respect him or not, whether or not you think these fights are good or not, whether or not it annoys you that, MMA fighters are losing. It's hard not to appreciate, after going to so many events for so many years, that this thing was sold out, second highest gate for a combat sports event in American Airlines Center history, behind last year's UFC event, which was headlined by Pena and Nunes too, but bigger than 185 and 211 and all that stuff. And it's an event made out of nothing. And so that was like my biggest thing. I was like, I can't believe, we're actually here. I can't believe this is actually happening. And I can't believe how insane this crowd is. To me, it was a better crowd than any of the other ones. And Tampa was solid, and certainly Cleveland was solid. But in a weird way, this felt bigger. And maybe because of the MMA fighters there and the walkouts and all that stuff. But it just felt big. And it felt, I don't know, it just felt fun and different. Now, obviously, the fight starts, and it's not going well for Nate. And, he's getting roughed up. And I was sitting there. Round one ends. I'm sitting next to someone from DAZN and like, oh, this isn't good. This is going to end very soon. I'm like, Nate's been here before. It's very hard to stop him. Zach Rosenfield, who's Nate's longtime manager and obviously works with him, he was sitting up there with him at the post-fight press conference, helped create this whole post-UFC life for Nate and was with him since the conclusion of the first Conor fight. Comes up to me and he's like, this is perfect. We have him right where we want him. He just emptied the gas tank. And I was like, golly, all right, let's see how this pans out. And in the end, Nate doesn't get stopped. He did get dropped. But as the fight went on, it was clear that he was getting more comfortable and, had his moments as well. The right man won. I was fine with the scorecards. But this was my prediction to anyone who would listen. And I don't remember at this point if I said it on air or not, but I'm sure there's someone out there or two people or three that could back this up. What I thought was going to happen, what I thought was the most likely scenario, I did not think Nate was going to get, embarrassed. I did not think he was going to get knocked out. I thought that the fight was going to go the distance. And I thought more likely than not, Jake Paul was going to win. However, what I also said was Nate Diaz is going to have one or two big moments that are going to live on forever, well past the result, the man getting his hand raised. And those moments will be so fun and so unique that they are going to almost declare him the winner to the crowd, just like the Leon Edwards moment. Losing for 24 minutes, has a great final minute, and in a weird way, he wins the night. And like the way people view that fight, they always talk about that moment first. And so what happens? The guillotine happens. And what's the viral moment afterwards? It's the guillotine. And unlike anyone in the history of combat sports, he has this uncanny ability to turn a loss into a win. And you see the way he handles it afterwards. And he tells you that if this was a street fight or if this was going to the death, he would win. And, he could have choked him and he could have single-legged him and all this stuff. And everyone's like, yeah, he's the better fighter. Jake won the boxing match, but he wins the fight. He has this amazing ability. And so here we are on this Monday. I don't really feel like Nate's stock has dropped. I feel like he's just as popular. And I feel like there's an opportunity for him to go back to the UFC and fight at UFC 300 against Conor, who all of a sudden turned the respect thing into a rivalry thing, or against Dustin Poirier, or against anyone else. Now, the question is, can he command the same money? Will the UFC play hardball because he lost to Jake Paul? Yeah, probably. Would they welcome him back? Yeah, probably. And now Jake is back on track. And, there's one of the best byproducts of all this, there's no fix, there's no rig. Thank the good Lord for that. Everyone just took the result as it is. And maybe that's kudos to Jake for the evolution of his game where people are starting to at least somewhat respect what he's able to do out there. And now we wonder where he goes from here. Do I have great interest in an MMA rematch? Obviously, I would watch it. Do I think that Nate is going to do it for $10 million? No. I think he would ask for a hell of a lot more than that. And so the $10 million will jump off the page, but I think he knows what he would do for a PFL if they're able to secure this. And I think he would ask for more than that, and I think he deserves more than that. And so I feel like it's somewhat of a long shot. Do I think it's impossible? No. He was a lot more open to it than I thought he was going to be in the aftermath. And I ultimately think that he enjoyed his time in the UFC, the way he was treated at the end, and you can see in the build-up to this fight, he was very complimentary of the UFC, and even almost like stopped short of saying like, yeah, I'll be back very soon, which is something I didn't predict last September when he left and didn't think that was going to happen. But I wonder if after going through this whole experience, he likes being the big dog who shows up for once in every 8 months or 10 months, whatever it is, do the thing, be anti-establishment, be whatever, but not have to deal with networks, not have to deal with, you're promoting, not have to deal with tickets, not have to deal with any stuff. And of course, there's people helping him, but like to just be a player in the play as opposed to like the guy putting on the play, which is essentially what his role was along with the MVP team, is probably a lot more desirable at this point. So we'll see what happens. But in the end, he didn't get embarrassed. He didn't get, completely annihilated, knocked out. He knew what he was doing out there. I think most people who have been watching his MMA career, expected that type of fight from him. As I said during the Chris Avila fight, I thought that was a bit of a preview as far as his style is concerned. And he had his moments, and he had the one moment that everyone, as far as his fans and MMA fans are concerned, will latch onto and say, he could have choked you out in 10 seconds there. So if this was a real fight, he would be the winner. So I kind of feel like both of them won. And then afterwards, you have Logan in there wearing the gear. Say what you will about him. Yes, he could have taken a shower. Yes, he could have taken it off. But of course, he wanted to play it up, the master marketer that he is. And it was wild to see him standing there in the locker room in the gear, sporting the shiner, flying from Detroit to Dallas, making it in time. That whole thing was brilliant marketing on his part. And he should have stayed in the gear. That's called promotion. And he's in the ring afterwards, and he's standing next to his brother, and these two brothers from Ohio who have no business being this good at what they're doing are succeeding. And then you have Nick and Nate, and there was like this double face-off, which unfortunately I don't think was caught on camera because I had just thrown it back to the ringside guys. But I was there, standing there, and I wish I recorded it, obviously not thinking in the moment, but it was Nick and Nate and Logan and Jake. Do I think something's going to happen there? No. But it was just like, these two guys are the OG brothers in the fight game, at least in our world, MMA. And now they're giving this type of respect to the Disney kid and the Vine kid and the YouTube kid, and they're facing off with them when they've never done that in the past. They've never partaked in this type of arrangement. And so it just was, the whole thing was just wild and surreal. Could you imagine 3 years ago when Jake is getting into boxing and fighting the Anson Gibbs and the Nate Robinsons of the world, that we would end up here? Wild stuff. Just absolutely wild stuff. So I think everyone should be happy. Obviously, I'm close to the sun on this one. I worked on the broadcast. I get it. I don't see as much negativity. Maybe I'm just not looking in the right places as I did post Anderson Silva. If you want to be a detractor, you can certainly find your reasons. If he does continue on the boxing route, which it seems like he does, I do feel like the MMA, storyline has kind of come to an end. Unless it's Conor, I just don't know if there's anyone else out there. Sure, a Mike Perry would be fun, and this guy or that guy would be fun. But I do think 2.5 years of this feud, nothing really is coming of the UFC angle, the union angle, the Dana White angle. I do think a break from it would make a lot of sense. So let's see where he goes from here. And for Nate, I do think a return to the UFC makes a lot of sense as well if he doesn't want to do that rematch against Jake. So those are some quick thoughts. Obviously, the Amanda Serrano fight was one-way traffic as expected, and somewhat as expected. I thought that she was going to carry Heather Hardy, and it was wild seeing her coach, Jordan, not really offer too much in terms of strategy and instruction throughout the fight. And then when I spoke to him before the 9th, I believe it was, he was just kind of sitting back and said they have so much respect for Heather, and they I think they were in third gear, not quite fourth. And then the moment afterwards was just incredible, and I was honored to be there. H2O looked great. Chris looked great. Shadeja didn't look as good as I think most people thought, but she got the W. And the Alan Sanchez fight was great as well. So enjoyed it, enjoyed working on the broadcast, getting to do that stuff. That's something that I've always dreamed of. And unfortunately, when you work in MMA and you want to be a broadcaster, you have to work for the promotion if you want to do those roles. The beauty of boxing for someone like me is you get to work for the broadcaster and be a little bit honest throughout and not be compromised and have to work for the promoter. So that's why I really like this particular chapter of my life and getting to do these things, because this is what I grew up wanting to do, idolizing the likes of Howard Cosell and Larry Merchant and obviously later on Max Kellerman. To be in the ring as they're all sweaty, bloody, after a massive moment is just an amazing thing and very surreal for me as well, because at this point I've done it 5 or 6 times. I don't even know if I've done it 6 times, maybe even less, something like that, about a handful of times. So just fun. Life is fun. It's good to have fun. It's good to be happy. The great part about the week, though, was the whole crew was with me. And like I said, I don't know if I'll ever be able to go on a trip without them, because it's just so nice to have familiar faces and friends around. And so let me ask the guys, overall, what'd you think? GC sporting the Dallas Cowboys shirt. What was it like? Tell us your thoughts. You guys were in the crowd. Obviously, the whole week was tremendous. We got to do the show on Friday, so most people have your thoughts leading up to that point. But then Saturday, you were off the clock, right? What was it like?
Oh, it was amazing. Like, you talked about the crowd. That was probably the most impressive part to me. I mean, it was full early, and it was super loud. By the time Diaz and Paul were walking out, I mean, there was not an empty seat in the house, and the crowd was going crazy. Very pro Nate Diaz. I think a Nate Diaz chant started every single round. So, yeah, I mean, it was a great experience. Both this fight and then the Amanda Serrano Katie Taylor fight were just like unbelievable atmospheres for a boxing match.
Rick?
Yeah, a lot of fun. I was still on the clock for Saturday, but in a more limited capacity than usual. But it was awesome. It was a lot of fun, and I think my takeaway was very similar to yours. Like, we kind of got what we needed out of this fight. To this point, Jake Paul's kind of been ratcheting up the stakes, up. I think he got up to the Tommy fight, and then he came down a little bit. Like, I don't think this had a ton of stakes. I thought both, and I've said this all along, I think both of these guys are Teflon, both of these guys being Nate Diaz and Jake Paul. No matter what that outcome was, they have futures against viable opponents that are going to be fights that people are interested in. So I didn't expect that there would be like a big loser, except for like a really, really rare circumstance where maybe like a one-shot KO type situation. But yeah, they got what they needed out of it. I think the fans got what they wanted out of it. I went home satisfied. So yeah.
Yeah, you say fun, Rick. Like, that's exactly what it was. It was just incredibly entertaining. I mean, I thought the fight delivered in terms of entertainment as well. Kind of, I guess, kind of expected on the final result, but I mean, it seemed like everyone was having fun in the arena. It was an entertaining fight.
Man, that crowd was so great. Like, right before the fight was going to start, and I was sort of in the belly of the beast, it felt so combustible, and it felt like if something happened, whether it was a knockout, a DQ, something, that place was going to explode. And luckily, nothing bad happened. I know there was one moment
I was
here.
say, well, it did explode a little bit after the fight.
Yeah, but I almost felt like it could have gone worse. And that just speaks to how hot the crowd is. Like, that's ultimately what you want. You want it to be here, just not cross the line, and it felt like it just stayed there for the most part. Do you guys agree with my assessment on the fight itself? Like, ultimately, Jake wins fair and square. There's no calls for it, being rigged or, fixed, blah, blah, blah. But Nate gets the viral moment. So much like he often does, he gets to walk off and say, I'm the real fighter, peace out. And you can have your W, but I'll take the people's W, and everyone goes home happy. Is that a fair assessment of what happened, Rick?
Completely fair. That's the Nate Diaz story, right? Like, if you look at his record, it doesn't tell the story of what Nate Diaz is, and who he is as a fighter. And it's the reason he gets these fights, to go in there, put on a show, have a good time, be there at the end, right? Like, the thing about him is, like, there was some thought that maybe Jake Paul's going to finish him. Maybe he's not ready for it. He can't box. I mean, we've had umpteen boxing experts talk about how bad Nate Diaz's boxing is and how he's not going to be able to hang. And then he ends up hanging. He gets all the way through. Jake Paul looked very impressive, in my opinion. But this is how Nate Diaz fights go, and he gets the viral moment with the guillotine. So yeah, it's exactly how you described. And to touch on the crowd for a second, I thought it felt like more of an MMA crowd than a boxing crowd.
1,000%.
The fact that, first of all, the fact that they were there from like prelim 1 and all the way through, and the arena was relatively packed, and then you just continued to fill in until it was completely packed up, felt much more like a UFC event than it does the boxing events that you go to. When you're in Vegas for a big boxing show, you don't see a soul in the arena until it's the main event.
I hate
just how
that.
these goes.
I mean, I find it depressing for the athletes. So this felt 100% like a UFC crowd, which is a testament to what the UFC has built and how they programmed the crowd to come early and what they've delivered to the crowd, meaning good fights from top to bottom and not just local guys or, amateur type. I know they're not actually amateur, but, like guys who are like just, 1-0 fighting each other. You don't really get that with these types of cards. And this has usually been the case for the last few Jake Paul cards. GC, do you have any interest in seeing the rematch in MMA?
Oh yeah.
Oh really? Okay.
Only in MMA though. I don't really need to see a rematch.
I don't think there's even any thought of that. But in MMA, you're interested.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, absolutely. To see Nate Diaz get one back in the cage, absolutely. I think someone opened a line yesterday. Nate Diaz minus 1,500. I mean, also just to see Jake Paul do the MMA thing. He keeps talking about it. He keeps threatening Nate Diaz with this $10 million offer to do it. And yeah, I watched it in boxing, cheering for, I was going for Nate Diaz once the fight actually started. It was a nice little rivalry between me and Mysterious Frank. I would absolutely not just watch. I would be excited for it.
Wow, Rick?
No, not so much.
Really?
I was very, very excited for the boxing match.
15 for the boxing match.
I'll explain. Nate Diaz has a much better chance against Jake Paul in a boxing ring than Jake Paul has against Nate Diaz in an MMA.
Agreed.
Cage. It is just not. It's apples and oranges. To the point that Nate had been making all week, and in that final interview with you after the ceremonial weigh-ins, no matter what happens in the boxing ring, he's not going to win a real fight, and that's the reality of the situation. Jake Paul would be completely out of his depths. He has not a chance in hell against Nate Diaz in a cage. So I'm not interested in that. If I'm interested in Jake Paul fighting in MMA. I'm definitely interested in that, but I don't think Nate Diaz is the opponent that I'm interested in seeing him against. I want to see him cut his teeth against somebody who's a little lower down the skill set, and lower earlier in their career. No interest in seeing Nate Diaz take his neck in 2 minutes and sub him.
Okay,
No
so
interest.
you don't have interest. Do you think it happens?
I mean, there's a lot of money on the line. If I had to guess now, I would say no, it does not happen.
Were you as surprised as I was at how open Nate? I mean, I know we're literally seconds removed from the fight, but I thought he was just gonna say like, "Nah, man, I'm done," and he seemed somewhat open to it.
Done?
In the aftermath. No, done with all this. I'm going to
oh.
fight a real fighter or something like that. Like I wasn't expect, and this does typically happen, like where there's a lot of love afterwards, and then you go on Twitter the next day and it's like, where did all that love go? There's now, pictures and stuff being posted, but I was surprised at how warm he seemed to the idea. The only thing that he really said was like, yeah, we'll have to make it a co-promotion with Real Fight Inc. I was like, well, that's not a bad deal.
This is what I'll say. I think we have a new Nate Diaz. I think we are seeing a new Nate Diaz. The Nate Diaz who is now out of the UFC, talking about how well run the machine is and how he loved his time in the UFC. This is a businessman, right? He's now a promoter. He has Real Fight Inc. This is somebody who knows that shutting down options takes money off your table, and he has a lot of options at this moment. Fighting Jake Paul in MMA would be a very lucrative option, as would returning to the UFC for big fights against names like Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier. He seems to be in a place where he has the business of Nate Diaz much more in mind than it had been previously, where it was just the brawler who's going to come in there and doesn't give an F about authority and all those things. So I'm not surprised at all. Like, this is good business for him to leave his options open and potentially consider a Jake Paul MMA fight.
If there isn't an MMA fight, and I don't even know why, like, he's on a trajectory at this point. Yes, he stumbled against Tommy. I feel like he's maybe not all the way back, but, he's got momentum now. He looked good. He went the distance with Nate Diaz. He went 10 rounds for the first time with less than 10 fights. Like, there's something, and it continues to build, and they continue to sign, solid prospects. Serrano, Silv, Green.
Silva's nice.
Silva's nice, man. He's got everything. He's a young kid. He's just 19, and he's knocking out dudes who, Teofimo Lopez couldn't stop. Point is,
and the Wana guy from
yes, of course, who we spoke to, Javon Walton, who we spoke to on Wednesday. That was a lot of fun as well. I don't even. I get he has to deal with PFL. I don't really know why he would entertain that, but I get it and I respect it. What's interesting about his situation is there's no guy there right now, right? Like who's? Oh yeah, there is a guy. KSI, that's the freaking guy. But otherwise, like, and I wasn't doing that on purpose. That wasn't a joke. Like, there is no one other than KSI, which I think would be a gigantic stadium show and one of the biggest fights of the year, regardless of the year that it happens. Is there anyone out there that we are clamoring to see Jake fight next? Like, do you agree that the MMA thing is done? I think Platinum Perry would be fun, but it's hard to go from Nate to Platinum. You kind of just feel like it's going to be the same old, no?
Again, you're not ratcheting up the stakes anymore, right? Like this to me was a lateral move, not a ratcheting up of the stakes, and I don't think there are any more stakes to be ratcheted up before you enter real territory where you're just fighting boxers. You're just fighting guys who are better boxers than Tommy Fury, which might be too deep waters for Jake Paul, if we're being honest. There's KSI. That's the fight that is the only fight to make at this point, right? Like if KSI can win against Tommy, that's the fight. And quite frankly, even if KSI loses, KSI versus Jake is still the fight.
Oh my God, 1,000%.
There's one other, and it's the one that they've kind of been playing coy and hot and cold and this and that. It's Jake Paul versus Logan Paul. That's the only other one that I care about. And now sometimes they lean into it, sometimes they lean away from it. I'm not sure if that's by design, but if it is, it does make me more interested in it. The fact that they kind of go in and out of it makes me more interested than if they had just said, yeah, we're going to do it as a cash grab. I would watch that as well. I would watch Jake Paul versus Logan Paul.
Wow. I mean, I'm the one who keeps talking about it, and you see, the comments that Logan made to Mark Ramundi at ESPN, the comments that Jake made to me during the face-to-face, the comments from Logan on the Netflix doc. Like, there's a lot there where you're like, oh, these guys don't actually love each other and want to fight. And then you see Logan go from Detroit to Dallas and go through all of that and sit there and like I'm watching him in the fight and he's jumping up and down and he looks like that doesn't seem fake. And so I'm very confused.
That's what I'm saying. Because like, how do you sell that fight if it's not bad blood?
Right.
Like, how do you do just like a brotherly fight and then not sell it as a cash grab, or either them having a ton of bad blood and then you have him flying across the country getting police escorts just to be at the fight in person? Like that feels like a supporting, loving brother.
Yeah.
I have a hard time seeing how that one gets made. I think the pinnacle in the influencer boxing landscape would be KSI Jake Paul.
That's the one. I thought it was going to happen at the end of the year, but KSI fighting October 14th eliminates that. I agree with Rick 1,000%. Even
what's
if
KSI's plan? He gets the win against Tommy Fury, Jake Paul rematch, and that's he's the boss. He says.
By the way, I don't want to see the Tommy Fury rematch.
We can all pass on. I don't even want to see KSI Tommy Fury. Like, I don't care. Let's just move on from the Tommy Fury and this world stuff.
KSI versus Jake would
Paul.
be so. I mean,
London.
That literally has 5 years of buildup. Wembley Stadium. Do it at Wembley.
That feels like they genuinely dislike each other.
And then you've got the awkwardness of whose side is Logan on.
And there you plant the seed for the next one.
I feel this. He goes with his business partner KSI. That makes Jake hate
He's
him.
in WWE. This is what they do. This is it. Build the story. It will. Listen, I don't know if it's going to happen, but it will be sellable if they wanted to make it sellable.
1,000,000%. Now, okay, next time we see Nate fight, is it in the UFC?
Seems like the best option, right? Like, because there's not. I have no interest in Nate versus these other influencers, right? Jake was the one that made sense. I have no interest in.
What if it's Nate versus Logan?
Okay, fair enough. I would watch it.
But more, Nate versus Logan or Nate versus Dustin?
There's more money to be made with a Dustin.
I would rather see Nate versus.
Actually, I disagree with you. I think in the wild west of this boxing world, there's probably more money to be made in a boxing match because the UFC is always going to cap it. That being said,
I think the shroud has come off Nate Diaz, right? Like up to this point, that I mentioned this on our show on Friday. Nate Diaz not working out on Wednesday was a masterstroke because it didn't give people an opportunity to kind of pick apart his boxing, see what's there. He kept the shroud up. It was mysterious. Shout out to Mysterious Frank.
Yes.
He kept it mysterious, and now we've seen it. So I don't think that Nate versus Logan does nearly the as well as Jake versus Nate. I think the intrigue is a little bit gone. We've seen the debut. We've seen how he's going to look. We've seen how he looked against the brother of the guy. I don't think that is as interesting as Dustin versus Nate.
Question from the Peanut Gallery.
Yes, go ahead.
If Tommy beats KSI, would a Jake KSI fight make more sense?
We talked about this. Just
No, I mean, you were saying you're not interested in a rematch, right? But did you mention the part if he wins against KSI, we still don't have the Jake KSI fight. So in between that, you have Jake and Tommy go at it again.
Oh, Jake and Tommy. No.
Yeah.
No interest. Zero. None. What Tommy Fury being in this influencer world just doesn't even like make sense, and nobody's interested.
Love Island.
Yeah, the Love Island crowd wants it, but nobody else.
If someone asked me right now, what's the fight that you want to see next for Nate Diaz? It's Dustin Poirier.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's the
I
one.
mean, if
Because honestly, I don't want to like. I feel for Michael Chandler. I don't think it's fair to just like what now the show's over. We're just moving on. Like he was just like some sort of decoy in all of this. I think he deserves the payoff. He signed
you're
up.
talking about Conor versus
Yes.
Conor
I know
versus
the
Nate.
natural. Sorry, yeah, I know the natural thing is like just do the trilogy, and of course I would love it. And I think eventually it would be a huge shame if you know.
That's not up to Michael Chandler.
No, I get it, but I'm not going to sit here and say make the trilogy because I think that's unfair to Chandler. He signed up, he did his part, he showed up. I don't want to say them's the break. So if you're going to tell me, Ariel, what do you want to see happen next? Give me Poirier versus Diaz. Put it on any card. Let it headline. Fuck a belt. Fuck a BMF. I don't need that. Those two guys are big enough to headline their own show. Poirier needs to get one back. This dates back, 2018 when they signed up to fight each other and it didn't come to fruition. Give me that fight. And then Nate fights Conor after that. That's the biggest one.
I love the intentions and the pure heart, but sorry, Mike, you wanted Conor McGregor, you just got the Conor McGregor experience. That's the unfortunate truth.
It's not right.
Conor versus Nate is twice the fight.
Enough to do an entire season of Tough, and then just before the season's even over, actually.
It's not right. I mean, honestly, I'm no Tough expert. We might have to ask AK Lee this question. I know Rampage and Rashad, the fight got delayed. And I feel like there's one off the tip of my tongue, and I'm sure someone's going to jump in real quick and
didn't McGregor do another season?
No,
Yeah,
but he did Faber, but that was never
they were never gonna
billed as a fight.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
I can't recall on the top of my head a switcheroo like that for Tough. Like you sign up to coach, and by the way, if he didn't get it in writing, then it's shame on them. Like I would hope that when they sign on to Coach Tough, they're like, and we're guaranteed the fight, right? Because then,
Doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, it does not sound like they got this in writing.
I would hope. I need to ask his manager that question. Diaz versus Poirier is the fight for me. That's the one.
It's a great fight.
70.
It's a great fight.
Can we just talk about his ability to have like one or two good moments and all of a sudden be the winner of the fight? Has anyone in the history of fighting ever been able to pull this off?
I gotta back off I saw that on Twitter. I gotta back off the like Nate Diaz won the fight stuff. Like
No.
Because
He didn't win the fight, but the fans are. You look at his locker room; they're celebrating like they won. They're smoking blunts. I don't know if it was blunt e-cig. I don't know if it was a joint. I don't know if it was
e-cigarette.
It was cig of weed. I don't know what it was, but they're celebrating in there. They're all happy.
Of course, massive payday.
Freaking GC! I saw your tweet. It had like 20,000 likes when last I checked.
Ridiculous amount, man. Because people, I really, I guess, didn't have. I knew people loved Nate Diaz, but getting to experience a Nate Diaz fight week from jump all the way to the conclusion of the fight, people adore this dude. Like, all he has to do is walk up, hit the flex. People are going to lose their minds. And then when he was in the ring, like every single round, there was a Diaz chant. Everyone was going hard for him. Any even small moment he had, people went crazy for. And yeah, like, he just has to have like a few small wins. It's just, and like, other than the knockdown, like he didn't look terrible in there either. And I think his fans are.
Well, like a hardcore boxing dude is going to be like, "What do you mean?" You
of course. But this
creates moments. That's what he does.
I view this much more as entertainment than like the hardcore thing. Everyone being like, I'm not gonna stoop to the level of watching that. I'm like, dude, it's fun. Like it's entertainment. It's okay, man. It's not gonna kill you if you enjoyed watching that fight.
By the way, this talks about the thing that I've kind of touched on many, many times, which is like, there's a reason Nate Diaz is a pay-per-view draw. Like, he doesn't even have to be competitive in the boxing match. He creates moments. He creates hype. He creates buzz. He creates people believing. He creates these atmospheres. This is what Jake Paul needs as a foil. This is what Jake Paul needs as a counter away from him. And Nate Diaz is proven to be able to do that. And he did it once again. And we saw the result of it.
So overall, if you're involved in this event, if you're MVP if you're Real Fight, the respective teams if you're DAZN.
You have
Was
to do it.
Saturday a success?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because you can build from here. This is a perfect springboard to the next thing. It was a perfect step.
What do you mean by the next thing?
Whatever the next big thing is. Now for Jake Paul, there's a lot of opportunity. Like now how far in the rear view does losing to Tommy Fury feel?
Yeah.
Infinitely far. It's not even like if I'm Jake Paul, why would I even want to fight Tommy Fury? That's more an opportunity for him than it is for me. So I think this is the perfect reset that was needed for Jake Paul. And for Nate Diaz, as I said, a loss doesn't do anything up or down for Nate Diaz. He has his moments and people believe again, and he's going to fight somebody next, and it's going to be a big fight. That's just who Nate Diaz is.
Also, it does feel like every time one of these roll around, everyone's like, no one cares about it. No one's talking about it.
Yeah.
We show up to the arena on Saturday night and there's 20,000 people there. There's not an empty seat. And you can't scroll social media without seeing it everywhere.
$3 million gate.
The nobody
it feels
cares
like it's
crowd.
just it just feels like by the time the fight rolls around, a whole heck of a lot of people care.
Could you explain to me the crowd? There's the no one cares crowd, and then there's the crowd that like just wants to mock and to your point earlier, be like, I can't believe I'm stooping to this level. Or I can't believe you are. So, what is up with that crowd? Why? Like, what is dirty about all of this? That's the part. Like, they treat it like celebrity boxing back in the day with Danny Bonaducci and Butterbean. Why is that?
My guess on that is A, they want to appear above it, right?
Mhm.
Like for whatever reason. But B, I think there is a kernel of truth in there where it is that there's no stakes. Like, what are the actual stakes of this? There are no stakes. They are not competing for any relevant titles. They are not advancing their careers up the ladder. So I think there's a quick ability to say, like, I consider sports to be a meritocracy where we're seeing the best fight the best or the best compete against the best. And then that continues until we've determined who are the best in the world and the champions and all those things. As an example, Spence Crawford.
Sure, but that is a very unique example. I mean, McGregor Diaz are the two biggest fights in UFC history, and there were no stakes attached to that.
I agree.
So it doesn't always have to have stakes. And I would argue that there were massive stakes here.
What were the stakes?
Diaz's future, getting clowned by the Disney kid, Jake coming back. Like, if you're just invested in them as people, how many times have you watched a boxing event and they have them there at the end of a 10 or 12 round fight if it's a title fight, and they say and new or and still, and everyone in the audience or everyone that you're watching with doesn't even know who the champion is, doesn't even know who the and still or and new applies to, because the belts mean nothing. Now they're starting to mean more now with these undisputed title fights, but my point is the belts and the stakes don't necessarily always matter. It matters truly if you're invested in them as people and characters. And who isn't invested in Diaz and or Jake Paul? It depends on where you lie in terms of fan base. But to me, like, if I'm invested in the career arc of Nathan Diaz, like, I'm invested in Saturday. I don't want him to lose to that freaking kid. I don't want him to lose to the guy who was on Bizarre Vark when I was watching Diaz fight freaking Conor McGregor or whatever that show is called. So, like, that's stakes enough.
That's not an objective wider view, right? That's just for you. I am a fan of this person, or I want to see XYZ outcome. A belt is very objective, right? Here's a belt on the line. If somebody wins this belt, they are a champion of something. That's easy to comprehend. That is hard work. That's earning it. I would say maybe the BMF is a departure from that, but in other cases, that's a very clear and concise story and obvious and ties to other sports in a way. The stakes are different. I would only push back on the idea, like, I don't think any outcome Nate Diaz would have been hurt. Like, I just don't see a world.
If he would have gotten knocked out in the first,
he would have been fine. You don't think you could sell Conor McGregor or Dustin Poirier? I went over to boxing, messed up. Now I'm back in a real fight. It would last a week. It would last a week.
I was gonna say at first people would be clowning him to no avail, but eventually, because he's such a legend, it would last
1 week.
He would have gotten brutally knocked out.
1 week.
Tyron Woodley still hasn't fought.
I was gonna say.
That's a Tyron Woodley thing. He's not Tyron Woodley.
He got the Tyron Woodley treatment.
I don't know, man.
I think it would go longer than a week.
When you saw the way the first fight was going, the first round, was going.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried. But then I was also like, this dude ain't.
I wasn't.
This tough.
Frank, how happy are you?
I am extremely
Frank,
happy.
I didn't realize Frank was such a big Jake Paul mark.
And to the point,
he's wearing. I wish we could show you right now. You're wearing a Jake Paul t-shirt right now.
No, we can show it. We've got it.
Oh, you've got it?
Yeah, we've got footage. There he is.
Wow.
What a weekend for Frank.
I mean, to be honest, after the fight, I had the same idea that he wasn't going to get the same treatment of people saying, "Oh, this is rigged," or
Right.
"What an embarrassment to MMA." So I was like, everybody wins here. You know, it was a great time.
What a time for Frank. Got to see Amanda. Got to meet the robot.
To meet the robot. You said it, Serrano. Him and Serrano.
Yeah, he got to meet Serrano in the hotel lobby. Sure, he told her that he knew where she lives and all that stuff, but that's fine. That's not creepy.
It's not at all.
She only seemed mildly weirded out.
No, I mean, did she look to her manager and say, like, please, if I blink twice, get me out of this situation? But it was nice.
What is it?
Guy was a star. Guy was a star this weekend. Look at him.
Frank was everywhere. Frank was the stand-in.
What is an order of protection? I got one of these in the mail from Amanda Serrano.
He was the stand-in for the ceremonial weigh-ins.
Yeah.
Any pictures of Frank outside the 6th floor museum with the fist, or is that bridge too far?
He bridged too far.
They confiscated that one.
It was so much fun. We're going to talk more about the week in Dallas and all the highs and lows and all the memories and much more to discuss. Big win over Rob Font, dominant win over Rob Font. And look, I'm not going to sit here. I'm not going to be the guy to say like, oh, actually it was super exciting and it's one of the best fights and you have to truly understand. No, I get why there was that reaction, but did it have to last for so long? I don't know. Am I being a hipster by saying this? Maybe. What do you guys think? I know you guys were traveling. You may not have seen it. You were at the other fight. Well, actually, I saw a picture from GC where you were doing the double screen, but it's possible you just take that picture and then shut it off. I'm not sure. Also, I'm not really sure. Do you have 2 phones? Are you taking who's taking the other picture? I'm curious about that.
He's got 2 phones.
Oh, he's got 2 phones. One of those. One for the plug and one for the, what is it?
The gram?
No,
I know what you're talking about. I got 2 phones. The song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it?
No, I'll never reveal how I actually get that done.
Okay, fine.
I also don't turn it off. But I didn't watch the Sandhagen fight.
I did.
Okay.
Me and Frank were watching Tatiana Suarez going crazy in the stands when she got the choke on Andrade.
What a win. But what
you watched it live? I went back and rewatched it on 2x speed.
I watched it yesterday. I actually had a lot of catching up to do. I watched SummerSlam. My family's still away, so I just was sitting there with the dog. It was nice. Got to catch up on everything. Usually I don't get to catch up on anything, or I have to do it when they're asleep. So I got to watch everything and very up to speed. Am I wrong with what I'm saying, Nurkrick? Should I take a different approach, considering you saw it?
You're not wrong, but I think 2 things can be true, which is that Corey Sandhagen was admirable in injury doing what he needed to do, and I loved his analogy about like, if he's playing basketball, he's not going to post up Shaq. He had a huge advantage. He's going to go to that. While it also can be true that it was absolutely boring and not a fight that I wanted to watch. Those 2 things can be true. It's okay to be critical of how boring that fight was while admitting that he had a huge advantage and leaned into it and used it to great effect and did not sacrifice anything. And I also think the broadcast did a really good job of pointing out that Rob Font was being defensive. He was being defensively sound and not allowing opportunities for Corey. And that's also on Rob. Like, if Rob's just going to, his coach, Tyson Chartier, was begging him to take a risk, and he did not take any risks. So that's not on Corey. But it made for a bad fight. That's okay.
Do you know what's a weird thing about this? Well, 2 things. Like, let's say it's the Bills against the Patriots, and the Bills are at home, and they're just, they're just running the shit out of the ball, right? Like the Patriots can't stop the run game, and it's just like run. Like there was once again. What was the game? Well, it was Patriots at Bills, and I think the Patriots threw the ball 3 times, and it works. And so why would you stray away from that if it works? If it's the home team, of course, they're not getting booed, right? Everyone's just going to be like, "This is boring as shit," but we got the W. Let's live to fight another day and be happy about this W. Here, they're always typically fighting. There's obviously exceptions, fighting on neutral soil. So if it's just a random crowd and they have no allegiances to the guy from Colorado or the guy from Massachusetts, they're going to boo. But the other weird thing is, because of the nature of the fight game, and this is just the way it is, winner gets on the microphone, winner's hand is raised, he's the one that gets a booze, when in reality you could say the booze should be for the guy who wasn't able to stop the run game. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Don't hate him if Rob could have stopped it. And Corey's incredible. Like, I love the way he says it at the top there. Like, I'm just really that damn good. And I'm just going to keep, and he says it was such certainty, but in such a dry way.
I also felt like he understood where the crowd was coming from too.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like he was complaining about
No.
their reaction.
I was complaining more than him.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. You pay a lot of money to go to the event. Main event isn't the original main event you were supposed to see, and then the replacement ends up being
He also had like 12 fights, you know?
super boring, non-competitive fight too. Like it was.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Corey has talked about like modeling his game after GSP before. Maybe I'm wrong. But he touched on it with you just now about I can go out there and strike with Cheeto and do that, or I can go out there and where I have an advantage over Rob, go out and do that. So I think he's more interested in putting together like a complete skill set and game plan and things like that will serve him down the line, where he eventually will try to become champion, than putting on the most fun performance. And for what it's worth, the dude has put on some incredible, damn fun performances. This feels
Frankie
more like
Edgar,
an aberration.
Remember those? Like, remember that stretch?
Yeah, I mean, Corey Sandhagen is not somebody who I would be like, that's a boring fighter. He is typically one of the more exciting fighters and fun fighters and more technical fighters. This was not a fun technical fight, but it takes two to tango. I would put more of the blame on Rob, if I'm being completely honest. But it's a boring fight. I didn't enjoy it. But at the same time, like, that doesn't make the next time Corey Sandhagen is about to fight make me think I'm not going to watch Corey Sandhagen, because I'm not expecting that. And he's putting together a skill set, in my opinion, that is going to put him at the top of this game for a very long time if he can do that to his opponents.
Do you guys think he will not get a title shot because this wasn't an
No.
exciting fight?
I don't.
By the way, so now that he's getting surgery on Thursday, as he said, so much is going to happen. Like, by the
Yes.
time he is ready to come back, and if in fact he is fighting for the belt, Aljo may not be champion. O'Malley may have beaten Aljo and then lost the belt in his next fight. Aljo may beat O'Malley and then vacate the title. Merab may fight Henry, and Henry could be champion. Merab could be champion. Like, the permutations, because of how weird that 35 division is with the Merab-Aljo situation, and the fact that that title fight is happening in 12 days, there's so much that could change between now and April or March. And by the way, also worth noting, he may be ready to come back. They may not have a fight for him to come back to. He may come back in July at this point. It may be a year before we see Corey. Play this clip in a year if that's when he comes back. Like, it may be a long time before we see him fight again, which is a bit of a bummer. And it sucks that it ended on that note. But to your point, Tatiana Suarez, tremendous performance. And I say just give her the title shot now. Honestly,
Go ahead. I mean,
winner of the Zhang Weili Amanda Lambert fight. Like, what are we waiting for at this point? She was out for a while. Let's just say she would have won a couple in that stretch as well, if not more than a couple. She's beating Jessica Andrade, and like, who else is there?
comes back, two finish wins.
Just give it to her. The
only caveat for me would be like the Yan Xiaonan fight, right? Like, if they
Yes,
can
that
do
is
that
true.
in China, you have to do that as soon as you possibly can. You do not want to have a situation like you had with the Mexican champions where it just does not come together and you're not able. Like, this J card is not what it could have been.
Yeah, but if they've done it once,
that's not even.
They could do it again.
That's not even in Mexico.
I know I'm saying that. If Zhang wins, you do Yan, and going to China isn't exactly like going to Las Vegas, right? There's a lot that goes into that.
Sure. I mean,
but yes, if that's in place, do it.
yes.
And of course, you have the September 2nd fight between Manuel Fierro and Rose Namajunas. No, that's at 125. Excuse me.
Yeah.
No, so 115. Jan Lemos fighting in 12 days.
Any chance they do Jan versus Tatiana?
I would hope not, because I
Hey,
mean,
kill her off.
yeah, it's one of them is going to get bumped up, and I feel like that's too good. Look, UFC needs title fights and ones that are compelling and interesting. I'm interested in those two for different reasons, but I do think those are two you have to kind of preserve, in my opinion. If Zhang loses, now I think all bets are off. You throw Tatiana in there, and you can do Yan and Zhang Weili in China regardless. You don't have to do that as a championship fight. And then I would give it to Tatiana. But as long as Zhang is champion and wins that fight, I think you have to do Yan Xiaonan next.
Maybe a Mirna Rodriguez or Virna Janjiroba. Marina Rodriguez. Virna, I got their names mixed up. Or, what would be a fun one? Mackenzie Dern.
Versus Tatiana Suarez?
Yeah.
I'm down for it. That also honestly, that also feels like kind of knocking off potentially somebody that you're kind of aiming to elevate, but that's fine. If I'm Tatiana though, do I even want that? Like, I feel like she's put herself in the good position of being able to say like title shot or bust, I think.
How did the Parlay Pals do?
We lost.
You did? I
Yeah,
thought
we
you
lost.
won.
No.
No.
Would have put us back in the black, but unfortunately, Ignacio Bahamondes did not get it done on Saturday night at UFC Nashville. Tatiana Suarez did though, and the Diaz-Paul fight obviously went over 5.5. Yeah, would have been nice to win. Would have nice to be back in the black. So, do you join us back now, or are you? Really
No, I'm good. I'm good. Chris
You're
Avila
good.
said I can't make picks anymore.
What about we need
No bullshit
Juliana
here.
Pena to
You're
win.
really not coming back.
Chris said. He said stop making picks. How can I disappoint him?
All right. So the 3 ride again.
Wait, this
Man
is-
weekend.
rotation.
You can't kill an era off like this.
Chris said. How can I disappoint him? He said it.
I need Juliana Pena to weigh in on this, honestly.
Yeah.
Juliana or whomever is running your account, please weigh in on this ASAP.
We need the Pena opinion. We need the official
we
stamp
need,
here.
we need an official ruling from Juliana.
I mean, what you say, shorthanded is what it's called when it's 3 of us? Is that we're just going to go permanently?
Chris said. Could we address the elephant in the room, though?
Please.
What is the elephant in the room?
Well, the Serrano-Hardy fight.
Yeah, I mean, the lock of the
First time ever.
It's not the lock of the century.
This is a
Overbuilt.
this
Round 3.
is it-
Overbuild.
Is it
Overbuilt.
sad that this is all I was thinking about throughout that fight?
Yeah.
No,
You
It's
weren't
all
the
I-
only one.
that was the
That's all
only,
I was thinking about, too.
that's the only thing to think about in that fight.
Okay, so
Cashed out my over 8.5. Cashed out my Amanda Serrano by decision. Rode with the boys. I mean, Mike Hag, the conviction in his voice.
Yeah.
Third round.
is he to blame?
Round 3.
No, because I will take blame that I was pushing it harder than Mike Heck, that I expected Serrano to get the finish.
Rick at least put his money where his mouth is. That's why I was like, all right, I'm not going to go against Rick.
Yeah.
He feels this hard. He signed up, placed the bet. A fairly significant wager, too. He didn't just throw $5 on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I ride with the boys.
And I appreciate
You either win or you learn. And I learned you don't always got to ride with the boys.
They were-
You could trust your gut.
2 chances that doctor was going to just call it, right?
Please stop. It was never going to get finished.
No, they were looking at
that
the cut. They were looking at the cut, but I don't think
They
My-
were looking at the cut, and Heather Hardy was 100% there and was like, "You're not
Yeah.
stopping this fight. I
Yeah.
am totally fine. Get out of here. I'm going back in the ring."
my read on the fight was that Serrano. Certainly, I factored in the idea that they're friendly, right? Like that you have to
Yes.
when you're thinking about the fight. But my read on the fight was that Serrano, the traffic from Serrano was going to be one way for so long that there was going to be a moment where the referee was just going to be like, and for what it's worth, I always said that. I never said like she's going to knock her out. I said it's going to be like a stoppage. It's going to be like a TKO. Late in the fight, I expected that the traffic was just going to be one way for so long, like much like Crawford Spence, to be completely honest, that eventually the referee was just going to be like, what do we need to see here? Maybe a towel comes in from a corner. But to her credit, Heather Hardy was firing back from minute 1 to the very end of the fight. And she made it very hard to make that happen. But no, I wasn't.
Do you think
not banking on
Amanda
Serrano.
carried her? Do you think
No.
Amanda?
I don't.
Do you think Amanda tried to stop her?
I do.
I don't.
Wow,
I do.
I don't think so.
I do.
I don't think so.
No, I think
I literally
anytime
asked
that-
Jordan Maldonado at the beginning
Yeah,
of the
but-
ninth, "Do you want to see a stoppage?" And he's like, "That's not really the game plan. You know, we have a lot of respect
That's-
for Heather."
That's what you say when you have a fighter who doesn't have power and
Mm.
is looking like they're not going to get a stoppage anyway. That's a convenient thing, right? Like
Fair.
I didn't want to stop them. Yeah, like sure you say that when you're somebody who's not a finisher. That 10th round, you didn't think that she was coming for her head there. Like it was very clear that the intensity was high there. There were just moments that it seemed like she had her hurt, but Heather Hardy was game, and Heather Hardy was firing back. I think it would be a disservice to Heather Hardy, honestly, to say like she wasn't trying, that Serrano wasn't trying. Maybe there were moments she could have been more aggressive, but it definitely did. Look, like when I think of like that, I'm thinking of the PFL fight between Schultz
Yeah, I don't think
and
that's what
Manfio.
that was. I
right?
think they were going at it.
Yeah, they were
I
fighting.
just-
They were fighting.
Yeah, I mean, she had been to 5 straight decisions, 6 straight over.
She is not a power
Front end
puncher.
Heather Hardy. Power might be a little bit overrated.
Wow. Frank, you just going to take
As
that?
I just explained, it was not a power.
I'm sneering at him.
At no point did I say Amanda Serrano was going to come in there and KO Heather Hardy. She's just not that fighter.
Mike Heck.
Well, he's a different. I can take no blame for Mike Heck's predictions.
Screaming at me in the Tex-Mex restaurant.
Wow. Yeah, that was. Which one was that? Oh, what a great Tex-Mex.
That was Senor Bean. There was a heated exchange. That's where this was all born. You know, I was standing my ground over 8.5. Serrano by decision.
You didn't ask me. I told you that I thought this was going to happen. Did I not?
Felt like the smart play. Tensions got hot. Then I told Rick to put his money where his mouth is. I was like, you want it, it's plus money. You take it. We'll see what happens. He takes it. I was like, all right, I'll ride with you.
To his credit, he did take it, right?
He did take it, yes.
I only.
He put his money where his
what
mouth
I believe in. Yes.
You know, I didn't see Mike Heck's round 3 knockout ticket, but
Yeah, Mike Heck getting buried. Sorry,
anyway.
Mike.
Wow.
I'm not going to play a blame game or anything. But I mean, if we want to recap it real quick, if we just want to go over the bets, yeah. So the Serrano Hardy under 8.5. When you do the math on everything, was the difference between a winning and a losing week. Snaps the 4 straight winning weeks in a row.
Gosh.
I mean, over snapped. Now we're riding a 1 week losing streak. But we're not playing the blame game. It is what it is. You know, I had to cash out the 2 winners and place the loser myself, and that is exactly what I did. And that was that. UFC Nashville, Paul Diaz.
Who are you with during the Serrano Hardy fight?
Frank, Sloppy Joe, and Corporate Alex.
Okay, no Eric in sight.
No.
I was working.
You were
we
working?
could actually see him.
Yeah, we could see him.
Were you booing him? Were you hissing him?
No.
No, not hissing.
Do you want the Frank cam on those?
Oh, what? You have one?
Just my recollection.
Yes, please.
Connor was pretty upset.
Wow.
I mean, like agitated, moving. He kept saying it was his contact. I'm like,
Okay, no, yeah. We had a danger scenario on Saturday night. My
complete
contact,
fabrication.
Yeah, complete fabrication. That's why I went and got the bucket of water and everything.
Well, to sell the idea.
Contacts were completely fogged. I was just seeing clouds out there. It was bad. I was getting worried for the main event. I was doing like the hard blinks trying to clear it up. Had to go get water, take them out. Hopefully Deja Blue, the water brand down there in Texas, isn't toxic to the eyes because that's what I washed the contacts out with. But we ended up having it sorted by the main event.
I almost did a condolence pat on the knee.
He was thinking about it.
Oh, no. Really?
I don't want to get punched in the mouth.
Well, here's the worst part. Here's the worst part is by around round 3, I was like, this is going over. This is a surefire loser. And I think it might be the most frustrating way to lose a bet is that when you have the other side and you cash it out and go with the other one. That was actually my first time doing it.
What is it like being with GC when
fun.
he's coming to the conclusion that he's going to lose a bet like this? Like, I've never actually
unique.
experienced it.
It's unique because you feel bad for him.
Uh-huh.
You want to acknowledge that you feel bad for him, but he doesn't want to hear a condolence.
He doesn't want to hear anything.
So you
That's
don't
actually
want to.
not true. That isn't true. Like if you were like, yeah, this kind of sucks, man, I'd be like, yeah, it does suck. But if you like put your arm around me and like caressed my knee and you're like, everything's gonna be okay, man. You don't have anything to worry about. I'd be like, get off of me, dude.
The last thing that I'll say is that, and this does come up, and I'm just being honest.
Wow.
He will start calling the fight like every moment. Like, it's over, it's done, it's over. And it's like, look, I'm still watching this. I still think there's a chance.
He's one of those. And how,
and it's like, I
how
understand where he's
early? Like, is he
coming
doing
from.
this in the 5th of a 10-round fight?
The entire thing. Like,
First? Is he doing it in the first?
This is getting
first
wildly
blow happens,
overrated.
and he's like, it's done. I can't believe this.
Oh,
This is getting wildly overrated.
Like
here.
contact.
I have to defend myself firmly in this situation. Frank would like look at me every couple of rounds. He'd be like, "It's not looking good, man." I'd be like, "Yeah, it's going over, dude. I gave up on the bet. It's fine." Like he'd give me the look every 10 minutes. Be like, "Yeah, your bet it still hasn't hit, man." I'd be like, "Yeah, dude, I gave up on it. It's going over. It's okay."
You would think he'd be sympathetic, rooting for Serrano. He's just interested. I love the dynamic between the two.
Meanwhile, when Frank had the what they called the meltdown of the century at the PFL championships last year when Taylor Harrison lost, I was a supportive friend. As he stormed out of the building, I was like, Frank, wait, man, like we're going to get ice cream, dude. We'll get through this. And he flicks me off and everything. See you Monday.
Rough night.
Yeah. I have to say, I mean, also, I will say this: if I am frustrated, give me 5-10 minutes and then I'm over it.
Yeah.
Like, did we ever hear about it again after the co-main was over?
I was worried about you guys when I saw that footage of the brawl and the concession.
We were out quick. I have to say, we were out quick. I think Frank felt the combustibility.
Yeah,
in
it
the
definitely
stadium.
was.
Did you stick around at least for the post-fight interviews?
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
I said yes.
No, I don't believe
We were
you for a
definitely
second.
there,
Here I am. This is my time to shine. I'm in there. Diaz brothers in there. No wonder no one knows what happened because I'm the only one left in the damn arena. You didn't
I was
stick
there.
around
Don't-
to see
don't-
your.
Don't disparage me.
We saw it.
I was there longer than you.
No,
So
it was
don't
good
even
stuff.
try it.
That's possible. Why? Because you went to the press conference.
I went to the press conference. I went to it all, baby. I was working. This
I
ain't,
know.
this
You
ain't
can get back.
vacation for me.
I know.
This ain't vacation for me.
I agree. I thought my friends would be like, hey, here's a
In
picture
of
you working. Here's
so
a
much
bird's
so
eye
that you're
view.
like, you guys still around? I'm like, yeah, I'm right here. And then there was no like, hey, are we gonna meet up after? or
Yeah, there
anything?
was that.
I was
I just
ready.
wanted
I
to
was
know.
there.
I
And
just
then
wanted to know if you were around.
And then you bailed.
I asked. I
And
was
then you
like,
bailed. Where'd
meet
you
up
go?
for
Where were
what?
you? Where are you at?
I was exhausted.
Right.
Yeah, meet up for what? We had flights in 3 hours.
I thought
That's
you were
the
going to say
perfect time
we
to
had
meet
spent
up.
enough time with each
I was
other.
like, are we going to see Helwani? And he's like, no shot.
Why not?
That's the time to meet
No,
up.
you're just a busy guy.
By the way, the best thing about working on the broadcast is that you don't have to go to the press conference.
Why I don't understand. What is the connection?
Well, I mean, I remember being in the freaking Barclays Center until 3 a.m. waiting for Khabib to show up after he beat Ali Quinta. Once it's over, it's over.
I see what you're saying.
You get to just walk out and be like, well, that was fun. I'll have some pizza on the way out.
Me and Mike Heck, we got a job to do. We just gotta get it done.
Mike Heck, man, getting a lot. I don't know if
No,
that's...
this is me.
No,
That's
he had
love.
a
That's
great. He had a great week last.
He was
week.
great. We went to where did we go? We went to the nice place on Friday. We went to the restaurant on Thursday.
Senor Bean.
Senor
Harwood
Bean.
Arms was on Friday.
Harwood Arms. That's right.
Is that what it was called?
Yeah.
The Mexican place?
No. He's talking about the place after.
Oh, yes. What was the Mexican place?
What was the name of it?
I don't
This
even
was
know.
amazing. I
Senor
forgot.
Bean. Oh, I can't remember the second one.
It was
I
like
do
an
have to say-
oasis.
Musina?
Mikey Musamichi?
Darth Rigatone?
A great moment at the Harwood Arms was Mike Heck was walking in for something and he was like 20 feet away and some dude like bombarded him and he was going crazy for whatever reason. And I looked at Rick, I was like, wow, is that like Mike Heck? Like a fan spotted Mike Heck? And Rick was like, I don't know. He's wearing a Red Sox hat. I feel like it's more likely it's an aggressive Red Sox fan than an aggressive Mike Heck fan. And then Mike Heck came back. I was like, did that guy recognize you, say what's up to you? He's just like, no, it's just an aggressive Red Sox fan.
In Texas?
I can see the vibes, I can spot the
Yeah, it was a funny moment though.
That was a great moment. And it was great to do the shows and have everyone on at the arena as they were tearing things down behind us. How crazy was that? That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, but man, I mean, the timing of the music was not fortunate for us.
For which one? The Wednesday was worse.
Yeah, see, that didn't come across to me just because I guess we were like kind of like in it for so long. I got used to that. But
Wednesday was a
It was
borderline.
constant on Wednesday.
Yeah,
On
that was-
Friday. It was hilarious how quiet it was all day until
Wednesday was also like, "Bam, bam, bam," and it was like
the
this
music
dude.
was different. Yeah.
And then there was a PA announcer, like doing his best, Bruce Buffer. I was like, God, did no one know that we were doing a show here today? I get it's not just about us, but like, man, that was really loud. The setup was great. I've never been to an open workout like that before with the ramp and the lighting and the ring and the venue. Everyone was so kind, but it was very hard. The whole time I was like, is anyone hearing this? Because I can't even hear the guy sitting right next to me. But I guess,
Loud and clear.
We
It
would
was
stop
very
the
good.
show if you couldn't be heard.
well, I guess. But like, what are you going to do? Just tell everyone to keep it quiet?
We would have told them to turn it down.
You think so?
Yeah.
Frank's
we did.
got that kind of
You,
pull now.
you think they would have listened to us? I feel like they would have said, tough
Look,
nuggies.
cables get unplugged all the time. When they were playing the music on Friday, I was gesturing to Joe. I was like, look, people trip on cables all the time. It's okay if
Right.
Rihanna gets cut off.
Write it down. Frank willing to sabotage events for our show.
That's loyalty.
That's loyalty. That's commitment right there. Shout out, Frank. I didn't know you had that in you.
That's a good friend. Thank you, Frank.
Mhm.
Appreciate it.